Okay, yeah, I'll just jump right in here. Uh, uh, this is Rob Lang at the University of Alaska Anchorage, um, and let me try to share my slides and let's see if I'm the fourth one to have a challenge with it. So let me see if this works or not. Um, and my entire application. And can folks see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, again, I'm Rob Lang, and uh, I thought I'd talk a little bit about uh, some of the possibilities with engineering as a career field. And I thought I'd focus in on some of the things that I'm well familiar with based on faculty or students here at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And so here's a quick outline. Um, I'll talk about some things like we have faculty involved in the water and sewer challenge project, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Something I'm involved in is looking at snow in Alaska. Interesting topic, and so that's one of my topics. Another
Your
one we have
slides seem to have
faculty.
stopped sharing. Did you stop sharing? Because your slides went away. Let's see.
Okay, am I back?
I see. Yeah, I see you, but I don't see your slides.
Okay, let me try again. And
There it is.
okay.
So if you click on there we go.
So is this working?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, great. Um, uh, Talk a little bit about building on what Adam talked about. Uh, Basically, that mindset of dealing with challenges and being willing to fail in order to learn. Some of the challenges that we have in Alaska can seem pretty forbidding, but when you think about it, there really are alternative ways of solving problems. And so I want to talk a little bit about wind energy, how that works. Um, Another project that we have had faculty involved in is looking at better internet connections throughout Alaska. And then finally, you may or may not be familiar, but we have something here at the University of Alaska, the ANSEP program, and I've got a video clip from it. So let me just jump. Let me jump right in and see if this. Okay, did that slide change? Just so.
It did.
Okay, great. Thank you. Um, This slide right here shows a recent video that came out from the American Society of Civil Engineers. And the theme is basically that with engineering, you really can dream big. You really can look at problems and come up with creative ways of solving them. And that really is what engineering is about, is looking at things that you want to fix and make better. And using ingenuity, you can do lots and lots of things. So anyhow, that's what this poster is from. The first problem I thought I'd look at, the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation wanted to look at the challenges of providing clean water and good sewage disposal in Alaska. And what I'd point out is the way that they did that is, there really haven't been good solutions over the years. And so they put out the challenge and asked anyone who was interested to come up with potential solutions. And they selected 6 different teams shown here. One of them were faculty and students at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And the idea being that not all ideas are going to work, and let's just try and see what we can come up with, and then we'll pick what works. And again, that really is what engineering is all about, is trying things out and seeing if you can make them work. I've got a little video clip here. Let me see if this works or not, but this describes this Alaska Water and Sewer Challenge.
To many Americans, remote villages in Alaska are a world away. But even in the farthest corners of the largest state in the nation, there are vibrant communities. Most of Alaska's 280 communities can only be reached by air or water. Despite advances in rural Alaska over the years, thousands of homes lack running water and sewer. Residents from these villages haul drinking water from central watering points, or drink water from untreated sources, such as creeks, rivers, melted snow, or rainwater collected in garbage cans. Many Alaskans use 5-gallon buckets to collect, transport, and dispose of human waste into nearby sewage lagoons or tundra ponds. When transporting these buckets by hand or in carts, human waste spills on paths, roads, or boardwalks, exposing residents, and children in particular, to health risks.
We investigated the health of rural Alaskans living with and without running water. And we found that children living in homes that didn't have running water were 10 times more likely to have viral pneumonia, severe bacterial infections, or skin infections. Adults also living without running water were more likely to have pneumonia and influenza and skin infections like boils. So we think that getting adequate volumes of running water in households will have an effect of decreasing these high rates of infectious diseases in rural Alaska homes.
To correct this public health problem, agencies have funded conventional, community-wide, piped and truck haul systems. Now many of these systems are aging and deteriorating. Funding to build these systems has declined severely, while costs have risen sharply, and there are still 22% of rural Alaska homes that lack running water and a flush toilet.
Constructing a water and sewer system in a village in Alaska is very challenging, particularly in comparison to other parts of the country. The challenges include the fact that you're often talking about permafrost conditions, difficult logistics. Most villages are not on a road system, can only be accessed by barge or by airplane. And then oftentimes we don't have the kind of soils that we need in order to bury pipe or construct a lagoon, and we have to import soils. So it can be very expensive to initially construct a system. And likewise, these same conditions make operating a water and sewer system expensive. We have to often circulate water to keep it from freezing, transport water or sewer long distances between where the homes are located and where we can either access water or dispose of sewage. During this period of declining funds, we've begun to reevaluate just what's going to be possible to design, construct, and operate in rural Alaska. So we realized that we simply aren't going to have enough capital money, and communities aren't going to have enough operating money to continue with that approach.
In an effort to find an affordable solution, the state of Alaska is launching a worldwide challenge to engineers, innovators, social behaviorists, and people with rural water and sewer experience. The state of Alaska believes this innovative approach will help meet the needs of rural Alaskans.
So the Alaska Rural Water and Sewer Challenge is meant to approach the problem from differently than we have historically. What we're trying to do is to look at being able to provide running water and sewer in homes on a house-to-house basis, as opposed to a community basis. We believe that there are technologies available today that can be combined in a way that could provide running water and sewer to rural residents at greatly reduced capital and operating cost. There are individual technologies available for household water treatment, for recycling, for wastewater treatment and disposal, but they haven't been put together as a package for a small home in rural Alaska. And that's what we're trying to do with the challenge, is bring some of those technologies those individuals and organizations that have worked in this area together to meet the needs of rural Alaska.
Okay, so that's an example of a challenging problem that engineers and scientists work on, collaborate and try to come up with solutions. So that's one example. Another example that we're doing here at the university, and this is faculty and students, we're looking at rising sea levels and how that affects areas, like Shishmaref and other areas. And the way that we do that is through computer models like Adam was talking about, where we take all of the input data that we can find, and then we build models to try to show our best understanding of what we think is happening so that we can come up with solutions to the problem. So that's kind of another example. Here's one that I'm actively working on right now. I've taken data on snow depths and loads throughout Alaska, and basically there are between Alaska and Canada there are maybe 500 or 600 different sites where data is stored, and all that data is in text files. So these big files with just numbers and letters. And then I've done coding, and so this builds on again what Adam was talking about. I've used MATLAB is another language. I've used Python, but basically I've created an app, and you're looking at a screenshot of the app right here from scratch. And basically where it takes all the input information and then it plots it out so that, for example, if someone wanted to know, every 100 years, how deep would the snow get, at its deepest in Shishmaref? And anyway, that's the kind of question that someone might, want to know if they were designing a building, for example. It turns out based on the data, and this is the data that's out there from Shishmaref. And what's interesting, the deepest snow that was recorded is here. It's about 2 feet, 24 inches. And take a look at when this was. This is in the 1920s, almost 100 years ago. So somebody out there 100 years ago was recording snow depths, and that data has been stored. It's in a database, and it's accessible via the internet for anyone who wants it. Then a period of time, and there was no data recorded, and then mid-1940s through early 1950s, data was recorded, and then again it stopped. Interesting. That must be a story behind that. I've also looked at nearby locations. Here's Nome. Nome has similarly had data collected on snow depths, back to their, over 100 years ago, up to the present. And looking here, Nome at one point in the early 2000s had a snow depth of 90 inches, so that's like 7.5 feet tall. And again, interesting. Working with data. So that's a project that I've been working on, and I'm actively working on. We actively have people, like I mentioned, looking at communities, like Shishmaref and other communities where there are problems of coastal erosion. And so what we do, and we have professors, we have students who work on this. They build computer models that kind of predict over time how much erosion is likely to occur. And so this happens to be a slide showing Newtok, and they're looking at then, in 2007, this is what they thought it would be, 2012, and how that progresses over time. And then further, as engineers, we try to look at, well, if this is what's happening, and if we can understand what's happening, maybe there are things that we can do. Maybe there are, jetties that we can put in the water, some kind of structural support to keep erosion from happening. And again, those are examples of things that engineers do. Another one in another totally different direction. Here I have a student, and he was looking at changes in climate and how that was affecting salmon migration in the Kenai Peninsula area. And so he developed a computer model, again, using coding. Maxwell originally studied biology, and so he's a biologist, and then he went into engineering. And so now he's put the two together, and he's coming up with models of how fish migrate and how changing climate can affect that. And again, the possibilities of what you can do if you have the right mindset, really, really are endless. So I'll build on earlier themes. And so Maxwell was looking at not only the fish themselves, but the whole ecosystem, the water, the rivers, looking at the laws of Alaska, and when are fisheries open and when are they closed, and what are the harvest limits, things like that, and how does that affect the users that are harvesting the fish, and put those all together into a big complex computer model to help us to understand better the changes that are happening. Let's see. I'll probably skip over this one, but basically, maybe I'll play just a small bit of it, and then I'll interrupt it. But this is talking about an underwater cable to improve internet connectivity, and this is the Quintillion project. And again, we've had faculty that have worked on this, and so anyway, let's just jump in.
My name is Tony Anzalone. I'm the social studies teacher here at Alaska School in Wainwright, Alaska. Bandwidth is a huge problem here. We don't use pencils anymore. Everything's paperless environment. Everything's on the computer. But as soon as they get on it, they need to get on the internet, then everything slows down. The entire classroom slows down. And that's pretty frustrating for everyone.
I downloaded Windows Anniversary Edition, which was 2.2 gigabytes, and it took 1.5 days.
Some days you could load a video, some days you can't load a video.
Sparsely populated but very active northern Alaska is a market that was ready and demanding broadband. It's everything from healthcare, where they have state-of-the-art hospitals that can't use the technology they've invested in, to students who can't pursue secondary education and often can't even complete basic testing for high school education, to consumers who can't shop or download Netflix. The cost of service is very high, the quality of service is very poor, and the economy is being impeded, economic development and growth is being impeded by lack of broadband. Additionally, essential services such as healthcare and education are impeded by lack of broadband. We're building a fiber optic cable system that will be available to all of the telecom industry to provide services in the Arctic, starting in Alaska. And that will allow wireless companies and internet companies to provide a lower cost, higher quality of service. The biggest challenges are that you have a short work window, you have some unpredictable weather, you're dealing with some ice conditions that you have to work around, and you're dealing with an absence of basic infrastructure and logistical support. The cable is actually quite strong in the way it's constructed, so that glass strands are fragile, but the bulk of the cable assembly is protection for those strands. And then we deploy installation technologies such as burial to protect the cable from risks. So we put armoring on the cable, and then we bury it deep in the sea floor to keep it safe. Phase one, the subsea cable is about 1,800 kilometers. in length, and that's a substantial system. With
Okay, I'll pause it right there. Where we've been involved in University of Alaska Anchorage, we've had faculty and students who have looked at, basically how would it work having those big cables buried under the ground. What kind of strength protection would you have to have in order to keep those systems whole? Other thing that I'll point out here, again, is, who knows if this is really, really going to work? I mean, you just don't know. You try out new things, and if they work, great. If they don't work, then you learn from your mistakes and you move on. And again, that's engineering. You kind of imagine a different future, a better future, and you try things. So let me see if I can advance to the next slide. Another example, of challenges in Alaska, the high cost of energy in remote areas. And so the idea of, taking areas with a high wind, and this map here, for example, the deeper the color, that means the stronger the level of the wind. And so, Shishmaref, areas like that, you've got strong winds that come off from the west. Well, what if you can take those winds and turn them into energy? And in fact, in Anchorage, I don't know if it shows up here, but there's an area, it's Fire Island off of Anchorage. Fire Island often gets a lot of wind, and so what they've done is they've built a wind farm, harvesting energy from the wind. I have a little a little video clip showing the construction of these wind turbines. And again, that's another area. It's kind of a combination of mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, and basically, how is it that you build a wind turbine system? So I'll play this. I think it's about 3 minutes long. Everything about these is huge. The towers are huge. The turbines are huge. We've been involved in looking at how strong a foundation do you have to have in order to build one of these. You don't want one of these big towers to blow over, for example. Those foundations go really, really deep into the ground. They have to keep the towers from blowing over.
I'm going to have so much more appreciation when I fly over these things now.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, I went down to Kodiak last summer, and I had to drive up there to look at their wind farm. Yeah, I think in Kodiak they get something like 80% of their energy from wind now.
Wow. Yeah,
and we've had faculty looking at Western Alaska, and intermittent permafrost. What kind of foundation do you have to have? But again, it's the idea of just imagining a different future and trying things out and seeing what works. To me, that's what's exciting about engineering. Okay, so I'll move on to the last. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the ANSET program, but we have a very active program where we reach out to rural Alaska. And in fact, we have a couple of our professors. Here's one of them, Matt Calhoun, Athabascan Indian from the Upper Kuskokwim River region. He graduated from UAA in 2002, which was coincidentally the year when I first arrived. And then he went on and got, so that was in civil engineering, and then he went on and got a master's degree and a PhD, and he's now one of our professors. So that's one example. We have Michelle Yachmaneff, Aleut, and again, she got her bachelor's degree from UAA and then went on. And anyway, she's now a PhD, one of our assistant professors, active in the ANSET program. I've got a short clip on the ANSET program, and again, to me, it's very inspirational and kind of shows what's possible. So let me play that, and that'll be my last clip, and then I'll stop sharing the screen and I'll go back and see if there are any questions or thoughts.
Students aren't encouraged enough to take additional math and science. They'll take their 2 to 3 years that's required by their high school, and then they stop. In the past, we've had a number of students who've come from all over Alaska, and more specifically from rural Alaska, and they've showed up at our doorsteps at the university underprepared.
ANSET's computer build encourages high school students to take additional math and science classes beyond their required curriculum.
In order to be ready for college, you need to take some additional math classes to be considered a true freshman at the college level.
ANSET exists to help Native students reach their full potential by earning a college degree. The computer build is the first of 3 ANSET pre-college components. Many students are unaware of the opportunities available to them, so staff members from ANSET travel throughout the state to recruit students for this program.
We go to a village, and we go to the school, and we'll go to several of the classes and tell our stories. We know where they're coming from. We were there. It wasn't too long ago that I was at high school student, and there was things that I was never told, which could have made a big difference in my life.
Once accepted, students spend a week building a computer, installing the operating systems and software, and learn to use several applications.
When students show up on day 1, having never built a computer, they're a little apprehensive in terms of how they handle the parts, how they handle the components. They're afraid they're going to break something.
I didn't know what to expect.
The hardest part was probably connecting all the wires. I was excited. I was kind of amped up, and I was like, come on, let's go. And then we started getting into all the wires and the motherboard, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing.
And then by the time the computer is put together and assembled, they're able to flip that switch and everything turns on. It's a good feeling for them.
The whole thing was a good experience. It was pretty fun building a computer, and it's like knowing what's inside and where things go.
It was worth it. Now it's all done, I feel accomplished.
In order to keep the computer, students must successfully complete chemistry, trigonometry, and physics. The experience of building a computer gives students the confidence to take these more difficult classes.
I was a little nervous for college, but after this little computer building, it made it a little easier.
building the computer itself may not specifically or directly prepare students for college, but it's that extra incentive to take the classes they need to keep the computer, and those classes will better prepare the students for the academic challenges they'll see at the university.
Next semester, I'm taking physics and probably chemistry.
I'm in trade right now.
I'm taking chemistry right now.
I took them all except for physics, but I'm scheduled to take it next semester.
60% of students who participate in the computer build finish the required classes and keep their computer. Many of those students go on to participate in the program's other pre-college components, Acceleration Academy and Summer Bridge, where they complete Calculus 2 and 3 before their freshman year of college.
I saw one of my first students who I recruited. She built a computer with us. Later on that summer, she participated in our Acceleration Academy. The next year, we talked to her about the Summer Bridge, so after she graduated high school, she participated in one of our internships. So I saw her walking around on campus, like the second day of school, and it was one of those very proud moments. Wow, I made a point to wave across the hall and say, hey, Jasmine, glad you're here.
The computer build is a catalyst that gives students the confidence to pursue higher level math and science classes. Many students continue with ANSET through their college career.
If I hadn't had built the computer, I wouldn't have taken physics. ANSET inspired me to go further in my education. This is a lot more than just a free computer. It's about, my future.
The Alaska Native Science and Engineering Program, working together to accomplish what none of us can do alone.
Okay, let me see if I'm back here. Okay.
We see you.
You see me? Okay, great. I don't see myself, but that's fine. We made it to this point. Let me see. Okay, now I see myself again. So yeah, maybe to build on some of the earlier themes, back to Dr. Monahan in the very beginning, lots of STEM opportunities. I mean, the opportunities really are endless. It's really only limited by our own mindset, like Adam was talking about. If we have that mindset of wanting to learn and explore new possibilities, then things are just wide open, and we can tackle any kind of challenge. We will fail along the way. I mean, that's kind of a given. In fact, the only way you learn is by taking hard classes, learning new things, and that's true both, as students or even as adults. Unless we try new things, we won't learn from it. And so, lots and lots of opportunity. I can't help, Adam talked about, computer programming. Well, I have a son. When he was little, years ago, I gave him a little computer and just let him program on it and have fun with it. And well, now he's one of those folks at Google in California. He has one of those great offices. Got a PhD in computer science. I mean, he just fell in love with it. But it was by trying things and failing and trying again, and just having that mindset, I think, is what does it. You really have to work hard at things that you want to achieve. I think Mark gave us some great examples of a different kind of technology, the soundscapes, and so again, it's really an open field, and just kind of summarizing, at least from my perspective, and then I'll turn it over to whoever else wants to maybe help wrap up. Really, virtually infinite possibilities, in STEM areas, and so. We were delighted to, give our little presentations and give our vantage point, on this. And I think I'll stop there. And if there are any questions or if anyone wants to take it over.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. This is Mark again. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Dr. John Monahan and Adam Lau for the presentations. Thank you, Togiak, for joining us. The students here in Shishmaref have enjoyed themselves. We had a power outage during my little presentation, so I think the students are ready to put up one of those wind generators out here in Shish and make it work. So they're eager to find out more about that. But just to make the point is, as Dr. Monahan has been helping us with Upward Bound and STEM focus, there's lots of opportunities. There's lots of science in rural Alaska. There's lots of engineering and math, and with the new technology that we have, we're just terrifically excited about the potential for students in rural and urban Alaska. But it's an exciting time to be a scientist. And I want to thank you guys for all of your effort today and putting things together. Thank you, GCI, for building this bridge between us. And with that, we thank you and we wish you a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. It went well. So I'll have recording links out probably tomorrow because I got to wait for them to encode on my server. And have a good afternoon, everyone.
You are the only participant.